And we're live.
Hello everyone, my name is Johanna and welcome to the Shaker Summer Celebration. So we're joining you from the Shaker Heritage Church family site here in Colony, New York, right next to the Albany Airport. And if you're not familiar with the Shaker site, this was the home of the first American Shaker settlement in the United States. So Mother Ann Lee and 8 of her followers settled here in 1776. And from this site here in Colony, they seeded new communities, over 20, from Maine all the way to Kentucky. So in our local community, Shaker Heritage is really best known for our craft fairs. So we invite crafters and artisans, over 50, that come and participate for a weekend. We attract thousands of visitors. It's a really wonderful community event. Unfortunately, we're not able to safely hold that event this year, so instead we're bringing you a snapshot of the site today. So we've gathered together staff and volunteers who are going to share some of the special elements of this site, and we hope that you'll really enjoy your visit. Just a reminder that if you live locally in the capital region, our grounds remain open dawn to dusk every day, so we hope that you'll take advantage of all that we have to offer here. If you're interested in learning more after this event, you can visit our website at shakerheritage.org, and you can also sign up for updates on our social media accounts, Instagram and Facebook, so we hope that you'll stay involved. Thank you so much for joining. So from here, we're going to start actually at the Ann Lee Pond Preserve. So Ann Lee Pond, which you can see behind me today, was originally part of the Shaker site, and it's just a hop, skip, and a jump away from the church family, where we'll enter in a few moments. But today we're joined by Lorraine Weiss, our education coordinator here at Shaker Heritage, who's going to share a little bit about the ecology and history of this really special spot. So I'll pass it over to Lorraine.
Thanks. It's a lot of fun to finally be able to talk about the pond as part of the larger history of the site. We're always so focused on the buildings, but this is a really important part of the whole history. In fact, it's here because of the Shakers. As Johanna mentioned, they immigrated from England, so they organized in England in the 1750s, and they were rather radical in their beliefs and their religion. Very strong core belief of equality of men and women and equality of all races. They were pacifists, and they also believed in communal living and in celibacy. Celibacy was a path to pure life and salvation. That was a core belief. So essentially, the settlements here were co-ed monasteries or convents in a way. They were radicals in England, and they were very adamant about their worship and their religion, and they were actually persecuted for their religion. And like so many other groups before and after, they essentially came here for religious freedom. They arrived in New York City in 1774, and 1776 they were up here, and they were here in Albany, the story goes, because they could afford to lease the land. And they could afford to lease it because the accounts were that it was swampland. So they arrived in the winter of 1776, and they set about transforming the area around here. So this was an agricultural community, but they also had a lot of industries associated with their agriculture. Very early on, they invented the flat broom in the 1790s. That started here in Albany. They invented, or they developed, the idea of selling seeds in small envelopes. And those brooms and those envelopes had to be manufactured. So there was a mill, originally on the church family site. You'll get to see that in a little bit. By 1812, they decided they needed a new site for the mill. So this is the southern part of the church family. And we're saying family because they established 4 villages within a mile of here. And because of their communal arrangement, they call them families. So you had the church family, because of the church, meeting house. You also had north, west, and south families, all within a mile. This was always a very important area for the Shakers. They relied on the ponds or the streams at the time for fishing. We know they caught bullheads and eels. They gathered a lot of plant material here for food, but also for herbal medicines. And that was going to become an industry for them in the 1820s. But by 1812, the mill at Church Family Site was really inadequate, and they decided they needed to do something larger. So they ended up dredging the Ann Lee, what's now called the Ann Lee Pond, and they dammed it, and they constructed a mill. Here's the early mill, you can see. Now, this mill operated until about 1842, when they decided that they needed to replace it with a larger facility. So this mill was right down here from where we are. You can see the dam is still down there. In the 1880s, they constructed this mill. And that was right across the street here. As a matter of fact, you can still see the foundations of this building. So while this is a very peaceful, quiet, usually quiet except for the airplane noise from time to time, it was actually a very bustling site of industry. It was also a grist mill. So the mill helped them produce a lot of materials. And we know that they continued to use the pond again to collect plants. And we have journal accounts of them picking blueberries. There are still blueberries that grow here. And a number of the plants they use for medicinal purposes can both be found at the pond here and at our herb garden. And you'll get to see that shortly also. The pond was also an important resource for ice in the winter. He actually harvested ice from frozen ponds and lakes. And there are journal accounts of the ice being 13 inches deep here. The Shakers not only harvested ice for themselves, they allowed the world, as they call the non-Shaker society, to come and harvest ice here also. And it was a large enough area, it's about 10 acres at one point, and there are accounts of about 20 teams of horses and men harvesting ice here. Today, actually the Shaker site was listed on the National Register in the 1970s. 1973, we were getting more interested in history, and at the same time, we were also becoming more concerned about the natural environment. So local advocates not only advocated for the preservation of the built heritage, they were also very concerned about the natural heritage, which is rather expensive. So in the late 1970s, Albany County established this as the first nature and historic preserve, and it was named after Anne Lee. And it's interesting to think she is buried just down the road here in the Shaker Cemetery. So the lead, the national lead of the Shakers, including Lucy Wright, who's another prominent national leader, they're both buried in the Shaker Cemetery just down the road. In the middle, you'll find our Shaker orchard. There are still some trees. There are close to 100 trees, maybe at one time. And that's a glorious place in the spring when it's in bloom. So there's still a lot of the natural area here associated with the Shakers. The pond, as many people remember, was an ice skating pond for quite a while. Albany County owns the property, and they own the Church family property also. And there are a number of policies and a lot of work being done to maintain the pond. A new policy, the pollinator policy to protect pollinators in the area. We're actually going to have a variety of programs at the end of June to celebrate Pollinators Week. So the Shakers not only transformed this area into a pond, they maintained it over time. They had to dredge it frequently. We have great journal accounts of that. But they also reshaped the area. We know that they did change this swampy portion of Albany County into a very fertile agricultural area. Some lands were naturally fertile. Peak of their community, which is about the mid-19th century, there were about 350 people living among the four families, and they owned or leased about 4,000 acres between here and the Mohawk River. So it's wonderful that the site is still so visible in a way. It's changed a lot over time. Actually, the airport was built on Shaker property. They sold that land to the city and later owned by the county for the airport. They actually loaned some of their equipment to help build the airport, and we have great journal accounts of some of the sisters paying to go up on the early plane rides as the airport was being built in the 1920s. You'll also see, in just a minute, you'll see part of the, we call it a little oasis here that's tucked behind the airport. But we hope that you'll come and experience all the both the built and natural part of the Shaker community. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. That was really wonderful. So if you're just joining us, we just spoke with Education Coordinator Lorraine of the mill and the creation of the pond by the Shakers. And from here, we're going to move on next towards the Kerry cow pasture. So we'll start walking together. And we'll take a moment just for a short commercial break. So, did you know that the Shaker Heritage Museum shop is now online? It's true, you can actually purchase goods on the internet. So, you can visit our Facebook page to find more products. You also can visit shakerheritage.org to view our wares. And we have a wonderful selection of handcrafted goods. So, my first featured product today are Shaker herbal teas. So you can actually see beautiful materials. Now what makes these really special, I'm going to step off so I don't knock any bikers off of the path here. But what makes these really special is that these are actually still cultivated by the Shakers. So in Sabbath Day Lake, Maine is the only remaining active Shaker community today. So the Shakers in Sabbath Day Lake have been cultivating the land since 1799, so these are grown on that property. Additionally, packaged in a facility built in 1825, and you can see these adorable little tins are just the same type of tin that you would have seen in the 1800s. And Shaker goods were produced with sort of a stamp of approval by the Shaker communities, and people knew that that meant quality. So these teas come in a variety of different flavors. These are rosehip, which was actually a crop cultivated at the Watervliet site here in Colony. But you can also get chamomile, you can get lemon ginger, and a variety of other delicious herbal blends. And as Lorraine said, we'll learn more about the herbs in our herb garden later today. But now we are approaching the Kerry cow pasture. So we are going to speak with volunteer farm program manager Bob Riley a little bit more about all the wonderful animals that he's raising here.
Watch out for ant piles.
So
Here, why don't you go?
you can see Bob is gathering the cows.
Let's see.
These are a very popular attraction here at the Shaker Heritage Site. We have lots of visitors who come just to see and say hello to the cows.
Here they come. Oh my gosh.
Can't help but smile. Hello. Ooh, you have a kitty today?
Cows did well.
Yes, they did.
Well, they came right over. And these are Kerry cows, which is a breed of cow developed in Ireland. And I have a treat sheet because if anyone ever asks me about cows, I go on and on and on. So this isn't to remember so much what I want to say, but that I want to move along because I have 10 minutes here. But the one question that Johanna and Miriam asked me to address, one of the questions, but I'm only going to do one, is why are these cows special? And they're special to me personally because 15 years ago, I bought 3 of them from a woman in Alberta, Canada, had them shipped 3,000 miles to New York, and I've been raising them for the past 15 years. So I have a personal interest in them. But also they're rare. And in the United States today, there's about 95 million cows. But for the Kerry, there's only in the United States 50.
Wow.
So right here is 10% of all the Kerry cows in the United States. And the Livestock Conservancy, which is a national organization, classifies them as extremely threatened, endangered. So they're at the top of the priority list because there's so few of them. And the reason there's so few, one of these cows will give about 4 gallons of milk a day. A Holstein cow will give 10 gallons of milk a day.
Wow.
So if you were a milk farmer, dairy farmer, which cow would you rather have? And the Holsteins especially, of which are 90% of the milk cows in the country or in the world, genetically modified. And so they can produce so much more milk. Well, being very rare, you might say, well, what's the value of them? The value is about $1,500 a piece, $2,000, which is the average price for a dairy cow. Because they're so rare, it doesn't make them that much more expensive because they don't give that much more milk and you can't make money off them. However, they're special in a whole bunch of other ways. And one way is, and this is most important, they have traits which have been bred out of most animals. One trait is their long living. So this cow is 13 years old. 13 years old, and this is her calf over here, which is still getting milk. In your usual dairy farm in the U.S., a dairy cow, when it becomes 5 or 6 years old, is sent off to be in the cattle hamper because if milk production at 5 or 6 goes down, the value is lost. And so cows don't give calves at 13 years old, except for the Holstein cow, which is the most popular breed. So long living forage. These cows just exist on this grass here. And unlike your dairy cows, these cows are out here. They have a shed they can go in, but they're out here all day long walking around. Your typical dairy farm, the cows are inside. Your beef cow, meanwhile, the average beef steer lives to be 18 months old, and then it's off to the butcher. So there's a lot of difference. These are heritage breeds, not genetically modified. They're easy calving, so these cows can go off in the field and have their calf and there'll be no problems. You're not pulling calves out as you might see on Dr. Cole on TV. They're maternal, so you notice that they have their calves with them here. And the calves, 2 of them are still taking milk from the cows. They have a fertility rate. And I often think, I compare, and I don't want to get onto this too much, the industrial farming today compared to the farming of yesteryear. And these cows represent the farming of yesteryear. Now, these cows have been bred naturally with the bull. If you take a cow, a Holstein cow, or a Holstein bull, they might get 10,000 straws. That means a dose of semen from one bull. Therefore, that bull would impregnate 10,000 cows. Where is genetic diversity and health? So I could go on and on and on with this. The most important trait, they're disease resistant. Because they're healthy, they haven't been modified, they haven't been engineered. Maternal. In your dairy farm, my relatives have a large dairy farm in Steuben County. They milk 5,000 cows. When a calf is born, within 5 minutes, that calf is taken from the mother forever. These calves, after 6 months, are still with their mothers. The farmer today can't afford to do that because that's milk that the calf is drinking that they could sell. But that brings up, and I'm going to be very brief here, but it's very important. Today we have a pandemic in the U.S. started by animals, most likely. wild animals, but not animals living out in the forest or plains. Probably animals that became domesticated, and that's where the disease came from, putting them together. So you've heard of probably the swine disease and the bird disease. Last year, 10 million turkeys were slaughtered in the Midwest in the U.S. when the disease came out. So I could make the comparison between the virus in the U.S. and what happens in our animal population. In the animal population, like if they have hoof and mouth disease, which they had in Europe 8 years ago, they slaughter all the cows in a 20-mile radius of where the disease breaks out. We can't do that with human beings. We isolate, etc., get them away. So you see the importance of that. I have to go through the names because some people like the names of cows. So, let's see. That's Shauna and her calf, which is the only one with horns because the other horns have been removed. That's Sheila. My cows I named after golf courses in Ireland. So that cow is 50 flooded away.
Oh.
That cow is Tralee, a golf course in Ireland, and her calf, which is right there, is Carn, another golf course. And the calf whose mother isn't here is Sweet Pea. And she's a gentle thing, but her mother is over that cow. What these cows also do, which is important to us, they add to the ambiance of this site. So they greatly enhance the ambiance, and that is a historic site. So when you drive in and you see the cows, you certainly say, well, something's different here, and it comes out as a historic site. And these are the types of cows the Shakers had, but they had cows much like the Shakers, like the Kerry, which are heritage breeds that have the traits of heritage breeds. And of course, the Shakers were industrious and into farming and knew how to take care of animals very well. On this site, pretty much on a regular basis, and I think without interruption, from the early or mid 1800s until the present day, there's been cows on this site. So when the Shakers left here, they built the barn, the dairy barn, in I believe 1913. So they're obviously still dairy farming. And they sold the place in about 1925 or 26 when they left. But after that time, other farmers came in and used this pasture. So as you can see, they have this pasture. They keep the pasture mowed. They're just doing a great job. And besides that, when they're told to run over and get in front of the camera, they did it. So
Superstars.
we're happy for that. But what we do is we encourage people to come visit the site. There's so many things to see here. We have bees, we have chickens and turkeys, we have the historic buildings. There's so much to see. So come and say hello to Shauna and Sheila Karn. This little guy is the little girl.
Aww.
So that's it. They did a good job today.
They were great.
That was wonderful.
This little girl won.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, girls.
They love to listen.
Yes.
So if you're just joining us, we just spoke with Bob Riley all about the Kerry cows and the farm program here at Shaker Heritage Society. And we're now going to head towards the historic herb garden, where we'll learn a little bit more about some of the beautiful blooming herbs in the garden and the history of how that garden came to be. But first, a short commercial break. So, did you know that the Shaker Heritage Museum shop is now online? It's true, you can peruse our wares on Facebook or by visiting our website at shakerheritage.org. So our next featured product today is the iconic Shaker Oval Box. Now, the shaker oval box was not actually invented by the Shakers, but arguably they perfected the shaker oval box. So this is a bent wood box, and originally these would have been manufactured for storing dry goods or perhaps tools, and sometimes they were even made into sewing kits. And they were manufactured for over 150 years in shaker communities. And this particular box is the work of crafter Steve Griselli, who's a New York State artisan based in Syracuse, New York. And Steve actually, his work is inspired specifically by the work of Elder Daniel Crossman at Mount Lebanon, who was the master box maker from 1844 until 1880. So Steve crafts these boxes using the same materials and tools and techniques that the Shakers did, and the result is these gorgeous pieces. And they come in a variety of different shapes and sizes, but you can see each one of them is bent and fixed with these beautiful nail heads. And you can purchase them in walnut, maple, cherry, or one of my personal favorites, bird's eye maple. Sycamore and ash are also available from other manufacturers, but we highly recommend that you check these out on our shop. So we are now actually approaching a few of the historic buildings. You can see here the Brethren's workshop. So the Shakers were a celibate community, as Lorraine mentioned earlier, but this translated to actually a belief in gender equality. So despite the fact that men and women were equal within the society, their celibate lifestyle led them to adopt many different ways of kind of limiting and delineating contact between men and women. And this included having separate workspaces. So the Brethren's workshop was where the men of the community did their work. And this could be broom making, turning handles, it could be sewing clothes for men in the community, a variety of other crafts. And the herb garden where we are headed shortly actually today rests within the foundation of the original Sisters workshop. So there was a 3-story stone building on that site. It was unfortunately pulled down in the 1930s to make way for the Ann Lee Nursing Home, which became the primary building on this site, and the rest was kind of adapted around it. But the sisters would have done all sorts of different kinds of work, but including processing seeds and herbs. So we are approaching the gate where our volunteer garden manager, Becky Langer, is going to give us an introduction to the work that she does and all the wonderful herbs that you can see growing here today. So Becky, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. Shall we head into the garden?
Let's do it.
All right. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. This is the Shaker Herb Garden. Medicinal herbs, mostly. If you're interested in what kind of plants we grow here specifically, there are about 150 different plants, and we chose them a long time ago when the garden was first built in 1990 for their medicinal properties that we knew from literature and journals, etc., and mail order catalogs, that the Shakers actually used, collected from the wild, in some cases grew, and manufactured into medicines, dried herbs for teas, and other pharmaceuticals. What else would you like to know?
So why don't you tell us a little bit about you and how you got involved here in the garden program? You've been gardening here for 20 years almost?
This is my 18th year doing the garden, so it's getting pretty close. I had originally just wandered in here looking for a job as the gift shop manager, but all of a sudden the garden caught my eye, and it actually happened, and here I am. All these plants are so interesting as individuals. Not only are there medicinal plants, but there are some culinary plants, some plants used for dyes, some plants used for cosmetics. In fact, most of the plants, if you read the labels, you'll find that there are usually many uses for each plant. even tomatoes. Tomatoes were used as a medicine flavoring. It was also the backbone of the Shaker's canning industry, which they started here, hermetically sealed metal cans. And it also has certain medical properties as a diuretic and other things.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. And they're delicious. They're really good.
I didn't know that either. That's awesome.
Do you mind taking us on a tour of a couple of your favorite plants in the garden?
Sure. This is not a very good example of the foxglove plant. It's staying very small this year for some reason. Ordinarily it's 4, 5, 6 feet high. The interesting thing about foxglove, it's one of the medicinal herbs that is still used in modern medicine. About 50% of our modern medicines, prescription and over-the-counter, derived from herbal remedies.
Wow.
At one time that was the only medicine that people had, all over the world in fact, and modern medicine didn't really begin until right around the end of World War II. So that's foxglove. It's a beautiful plant. It's cultivars, the modern fancy ones, as opposed to the wild one it originated from, has all the same medical properties that the wild one has, which is a little unusual.
Yeah.
Everybody's favorite is daisies. They're good for cough medicine, apparently. One of my favorites is apple mint.
Apple mint.
It's just getting going. It's a sweet, mild, fruity mint, and it just has deep roots in my childhood. My grandmother had it in her yard, my mother, I did, in every house I ever lived in. It's just delicious. Also rhubarb. This plant is so big nobody realizes it's rhubarb and always asks what it is, but it's so big.
It's lush this year.
I don't even see its tag.
Oh, it's over on the corner there.
Oh, there it is.
We have to constantly move the tags because the plants like to engulf them.
Yeah, rhubarb pie was a staple for me growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It's delicious. Let's see, other favorite plants. Mayapple is, you want to go all the way?
Sure. I'll meet you there.
These are the mayapple plants. And they're so darn charming. It's a native wild plant, and it gets a big white flower in May, called the mayflower.
Appropriate.
And the mayflower eventually turns into what looks like a lemon that forms right there in the middle of the two leaves. And it tastes like a lemon too. And right next to it is another favorite. This is Indian cup. It's more of a prairie plant. So these plants represent the Shaker sites all over the Northeast. You don't see it wild around here very much. But it gets to be about twice as tall as it is now, and it's just a huge plant. It overwhelms the whole garden with its beautiful yellow flowers on top, and we call it Big Herb. It's the only plant we've actually named in the garden. We also have,
That tarragon is impressive.
it doesn't have, even though it's virtually genetically almost the same as the French tarragon right there, the flavor is so different.
I can smell it from here. It's
Me
really
too.
Wonderful.
And it does not produce fertile seeds.
Oh, interesting.
This tastes a lot like, it's almost like grassy. You want to put it in like beef stew or something.
Okay. It does say it
Oh.
induces appetite.
Yeah.
Savory.
It makes you wish it tasted better. It does taste good. It's just not French tarragon.
That's so funny.
Becky, we've gotten a few questions from some of our viewers. One was, what are the best plants, either flowers or fruiting, that grow well with herbs? So you mentioned tomatoes is one, but what kinds of other plants can you cultivate alongside herbs?
actually herbs and you're talking about vegetable plants?
Yeah, that was, I
in a
think,
vegetable garden?
or ornamental flowers as well, it sounds like.
Herbs integrate beautifully with all of those because some of them are really very ornamental, like the sage plant over here. The peony right there is just past its
I have to get a close-up
stage.
of the peonies.
Yeah, there's that one dark red flower
That's
left.
beautiful.
They come out dark red and age to the pale pink. That's actually from Chinese medicine, but it's such a popular plant now for flower gardens. Thyme is a wonderful living ground cover and a lawn substitute in many areas, like the Adirondacks, for instance.
I didn't know that.
Oh, it's beautiful up there. It blooms later in summer, so you have this purple lawn instead of a green lawn.
I'm here for that.
It's gorgeous. And right next to you is garden lettuce, which isn't very interesting, except that we eat it in our salads every day.
It's got a beautiful
But
texture.
yeah, it is beautiful. The leaf lettuces. It produced a mild narcotic that people used on children to calm them down because opium was too strong to use on children.
Well, I'm glad they moderated their opium use.
A couple was in here one day with their 3 kids, and I heard the husband say, "Honey, come over here. We have to feed the children more salad." And of course the kids go, "Dad."
Another question that hasn't come up directly, but I think people would probably be curious about, because I often am, is how do you control pests in this garden?
We don't. we just can't seem to do it. God knows why the deer never came in here until about 3 years ago. And they just hop the fence, eat the parsley, chew a rose, and then leave. And usually they don't really come back very much. Most animals and other insects and pests aren't that interested in herbs because they have those medicinal properties that are really off-putting to a lot of animals and other creatures.
So it's like a natural pesticide growing herbs.
Yeah, they have their own defenses. We do raise a lot of black swallowtail butterfly caterpillars, which we let them do it. Yeah, they lay their eggs on the umbelliferous plants, the dill, Queen Anne's lace, and the fruity, yummy things, and the caterpillars just eat it right down. And the caterpillars are beautiful too, so we just watch and protect.
Umbelliferous? Is that the
Yeah,
word?
that means they have flowers shaped like an umbrella.
Oh. All right, okay. Excellent.
We're learning today too.
Oh, sure.
Any other plants that you'd like to point out before we...
The roses are looking beautiful today too.
Yes, the red roses are hitting full bloom right now. They're having a very good year.
We got here just in time.
These have a history at this site, don't they?
They do. These 2 shrubs are rose shrubs, and the 2 damask rose shrubs, which aren't having a good year, were all donated by Elizabeth Corning, the wife of Albany's longtime mayor.
Oh,
Excellent.
awesome.
I believe that Shakers cultivated roses here as well.
They did.
I've read interesting accounts of how cut flowers in vases or wearing a flower in your hair was strictly forbidden, and so you actually cut them off with no stems. You help reduce temptation. I'm not sure if that's true or apocryphal, but
I would bet it's true because first of all, the part you're going to use is the blossom itself, and if you just snip it off at the base, you don't have to deal with the thorns on the stem. So that would be my thinking. Roses and I don't get along well. I love the scent and the look, but like thorns. Anything else?
No questions from here. Any other questions from you, Johanna? Maybe one more?
I think one more question we did get, which I think we bounced to earlier this week, so you might be expecting it
plants in this garden, as I said before, are medicinal plants. Today we view a lot of those as weeds. So they do quite well without a lot of help. If you really want to have some beautiful herbs, though, mints, including lemon balm, which is just delicious.
Is that over here?
Yeah.
Shall we take a look?
That little mounded one, big mounded one, I should say.
Mint can be pretty aggressive though, can't it?
It can, yes, it can. Watch out. If you're interested in pollination, milkweed, believe it or not, is very popular right now. The staples are always good: parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. They're all easy to grow. Scarborough Fair, chives.
The chives are beautiful. We
Yeah,
saw those
I
over there.
once had a vegetable garden with a complete border of chives around the bottom of the fence. And no animals crossed that.
Oh, yeah.
Even woodchucks.
Good to know.
Because we have some woodchucks on this property.
Yes,
I'm
we
always
do.
impressed that they don't actually get in
They-
the fence.
They have done their best and occasionally succeeded. But what happened was when the original garden was built, Ralph knew about this, the original gardener, and he buried the bottom of the fence about 4 inches down. And believe it or not, that's all it takes. Woodchucks will scratch at the bottom of the fence, and they'll go down an inch or two, and if they meet resistance, they'll just go try somewhere else. They're easy to deter, but once they get in, forget it.
Top tips.
It's like a bomb crater.
Well, on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much, Becky, for your time today. I really enjoyed it. So, just a reminder, our grounds are open dawn to dusk every day, so if you live locally and you would like to come visit the garden, please do. The gate is always open, so I hope we'll see you here soon. So from here, we'll take our leave. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky.
Thanks for the opportunity. It was fun.
Good. So I am going to head back out the garden. I'll practice my tour walk.
Just to get out of the gate.
But next, if you're just joining us, we just spoke with Becky Langer, who is our volunteer master herb gardener. And we learned a little bit about some of the beautiful medicinal herbs and pollinator plants that we cultivate here at the Shaker site. And from here, we are actually heading over to the 1848 Meeting House, which is really the centerpiece of our site, and fairly recently restored in 2006. And we're going to meet our good friend and craft beer vendor, Lori Carter-Secreti, who's going to give us a short demonstration of weaving and talk a little bit about the work of local artisans. But first, a short commercial break. So, did you know that the Shaker Museum shop is actually now online? So you can peruse our wares on Facebook or by checking out our website, shakerheritage.org, and clicking on shop. So, we just have a moment, but our final featured product today, if I can find it in my Mary Poppins bag, here we go, is local honey. So, fitting with the pollinator theme of this month, you can pick up a variety of delicious honeys in flavors like basswood, clover, wildflower, and you can also get it in this delicious creamed variety, which is manufactured kind of like ice cream by rapidly chilling and stirring to break up the sugar crystals.
I didn't know that.
So, I hope that you'll come check out our site and you'll do a little shopping when you have a moment. But now I'm going to turn it over to our friend Lori. So Lori, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Good morning. Hope
So-
everybody's well out there.
Thank you. So tell us a little bit about this wonderful contraption that you have here.
This is called a loom, and this is a floor loom. It's a 4 harness. These are the harnesses right here. 6 treadle. There are pedals down below.
Wow.
And on a loom, you have a warp, which is this length of threads right here, and this roll of paper stacks my yarn. And then this is your beater bar right here that sets your threads in place. And these are your shuttles right here. So just to give you an idea, there are many, many different types of looms and shuttles and parts for weaving, and this is just a small section right here of the different types of shuttles that you can use. This is for weaving ragwork right here.
Ooh.
And this is a mug mat fill right here.
Mug mat.
This is with bobbins. You have to wind the bobbins. So anyways, today I've got a twill set up because the Shakers did a lot of twill work. So I've run off a couple of pieces, but I'll give you a little demonstration. So I'm throwing my shuttle and I'm changing my treadle.
So how do you know which pedal to press?
Well, right now I'm on a really easy one because I'm nervous. So I'm just doing 6, 5, 4, 3. It's hard to goof up.
I bet I could do it.
I did a couple at home yesterday and cut them off. This is a little more difficult right here.
So you just made that yesterday?
These both.
Wow.
Actually, I made 6 yesterday.
Love the colors.
Yes, so this one right here, this treadling is the one that I'm doing today on the loom, and it's 6, 5, 4, 3. This one is 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 5. So it's a little bit harder, but not much. I normally don't work in a lot of patterns. My products are mostly plain weave, the easiest weave of all, because it's the most durable. So I'm going to do a little bit more, and then I'm going to take it over and I'm going to show you some work from some of our great local weavers. We have a really diverse group of weavers in our area.
Yeah, so you're a member of the Weaving Guild.
Hudson Mohawk Weavers Guild, and it's all walks of life, all different areas. We come together once a month, and we have a great big show that, of course, this year is canceled, but next year it'll be back, and it's just incredible. So here are some pieces from some local weavers right here.
Right. Tell us about them.
So this is, I don't know the names of some of them, but this is Sandy Lohman. I have probably 6 or 7 of her coats. She actually weaves the fabric and makes the coats.
Wow.
And they're spectacular. This was actually woven and put together right here.
So cute.
I love the little
And then
stocking
these are
cap.
some pieces right here. So
That's
that's just
amazing.
to give you an idea of how many different directions you can go in with weaving. I kind of found my niche with plain weave and other things that I tinker around with, but some people really like the more intense patterns and everything.
I'll hold my next question till the airplane goes by.
I'll do some close-ups of the weaving until the plane goes by. Beautiful colors again. And all this is done on a loom, just like the
Yes.
one
Well,
that you
there's
showed
all
us?
different kinds of looms. If you notice when I told you about this loom, the 4 harnesses, there are unlimited amount of harnesses, and the more harnesses you have, the more elaborate the pattern counting system. So before you ever start weaving, side right here and get a close-up of here. Each one of these has to be threaded, and then after you thread it through here, and it's done in a certain order, it's almost like a computer. It counts and sorts. It holds your width for you, and it pounds your threads tight and keeps them nice and straight going across here. So now your next question.
So I was actually wondering, you said this is a twill weave?
Yes.
So what would that commonly be used for?
Blue jeans. Anybody that has a pair of blue jeans and wants to see twill close up in person, just look down at your blue jeans.
All right.
Almost all blue jeans are twill.
All right. So that must also be a pretty utilitarian,
It's
durable.
very sturdy.
Yeah.
It's very sturdy without a lot of overcast of the thread to catch on something.
Okay. So that is kind of the design factor, how much
Yes.
overcast you have.
Yes.
Interesting.
And that's how people design things. When they decide what they're going to make and choose their colors and their yarns and everything, you have different sets for different uses. So these are going to be towels. So I didn't want them totally flat. I wanted some of the threads raised more than others so that it would have a better drying ratio.
Excellent. So, I think with that, shall we get ready to head to the meeting house?
Thank you so much, Lori.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Where can people find more info about you, Lori?
At the Shaker Museum.
And the Mohawk Hudson Weavers Guild?
Yes.
So, do you know their website? I don't remember, but you can probably Google.
Hudson Mohawk Weavers.
All right,
We'll-
Hudson Mohawk Weavers.
We'll
Guild.
put it in the comments.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you, Lori.
So much for your time
Have a
today.
good day.
You too. So, if you're just joining us, we just spoke with Lori Carter-Secreti, who is a craft fair vendor here and a wonderful weaver, and learned a little bit about weaving on a hand loom and all of the different beautiful fabrics that you can create and use. So from here, we are going to step into the 1848 meeting house, and I'm going to step inside, and then I will wrap up and put a mask on in compliance with our sign here for the pandemic. You can already hear our next entertainment. So we are going to be joined by Shaker Fiddle, and they'll be performing a few pieces. So we're going to step into the historic meeting hall and find out a little bit more. to amplify the human voice in song and worship. So that concludes our Shaker Summer celebration today. Thank you so much for joining us. And one more quick reminder, our grounds remain open dawn to dusk every day. The museum shop and exhibits we hope will reopen with phase 4, possibly in July. We're waiting final confirmation from the state. But in the meantime, you can learn more by visiting our website at shakerheritage.org or